What happened with Molly? ESPN First Take. Did she do something wrong?
What overnight? It ain't show up the next day. If y'all not aware, Molly Qerim resigned, flat out quit from being the host for ESPN's First Take with Stephen A.
This is what Molly's actual quote was. After much reflection, I've decided it's time to close this incredible chapter and step away from First Take. Stephen A was not mentioned in that.
She said it with the kind of calm that hides a storm. We share much reflection. I've decided it's time to close this incredible chapter. That's how Molly Qerim dropped the bombshell on everyone. Just one clean, perfectly phrased Instagram story, no caption circus, no dramatic photo, posted out of nowhere on the night of September 15th, 2025. The timing was suspicious, but it was the wording that had people's jaws on the floor. Every line felt sharp, rehearsed, almost too polished.
Miss Molly Qerim, longtime host for ESPN's First Take, my day job, where she has been the last 10 years. Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
She thanked the most brilliant, passionate, and entertaining voices in sports. But fans instantly noticed the one name missing, Stephen A. Smith. The man she'd spent nearly a decade sparring with on live TV wasn't mentioned once. Not even a casual nod. That silence spoke louder than 1,000 words. Everyone scrolling through that story caught it instantly. It wasn't some forgetful slip. It was a message wrapped in velvet. The type of move only insiders understand, like a coded goodbye meant to sting. Viewers compared it to when someone gives a big thank you speech at a farewell party and just happens to skip the person they once couldn't live without.
Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But
by sunrise, the internet was already on fire. Sports fans were wide awake, scrolling and speculating like detectives on a caffeine rush. Something about Molly's post didn't sit right, and by morning, all eyes were glued to First Take. But when the show opened, the vibe was off. You could feel it through the screen. Stephen A. Smith sat at that same familiar desk, yet the air felt heavy, like the laughter had been vacuumed out of the studio.
I think we'll start with Molly Qerim.
Ooh, she's out
She, yesterday when we talked, we knew that she was leaving, but we didn't know she was leaving like immediately, which is an indication that, man, this thing's a bit more complicated than just they couldn't settle on the money. It just seems more seriously. She's off the show now. ESPN put out a statement. Stephen A. Smith had something to say.
He kicked things off with what sounded like a tribute, saying Molly was an enormous part of our success for a decade, tossing in soft words like grace and kindness. The kind of lines that belong in a farewell card, not a heartfelt goodbye. It was the perfect eulogy for a partnership that wasn't even cold yet. But the delivery? Empty. It hit like a robotic LinkedIn endorsement from a boss trying to look professional after you've just filed an HR complaint. Every word felt filtered through ESPN's legal department. So cautious, so scripted, you could practically hear the lawyers whispering in his earpiece.
acknowledging my love and appreciation for her and what she's meant to me and what she's meant to the show. Because over the years, over the last decade or so, the things that we've accomplished, she was right there. And we could talk about me being the star of my daily television show. We can talk about the contributors that have been stars as well. We can even talk about me doing this show right now. You know, it's a hell of a lot easier to have a second job.
Social media caught the vibe instantly. Viewers said it looked procedural, like a pilot running through a checklist while the plane quietly smoked mid-flight. It wasn't passion, it was PR damage control. Sure, Smith called her a friend and claimed, "I'll miss spending every weekday morning with her right by my side." But come on, fans have seen him make a preseason basketball segment sound like a moon landing, when Steven's really feeling it, you know. But this time, he sounded like a man who just misplaced a filing cabinet. If only that awkward tribute had been the end of it. But
I thought that was a kind of an interesting segue that he had in terms of the Molly Qerim situation. And now that you say it, I'm thinking, Are those two things connected? Then maybe Stephen A says, hey, I have great value. She's our point guard. I'm comfortable with her. Maybe the higher up said, hey, look, Stephen A, you got the money. The budget is the budget. And maybe, this is just a theory, just my opinion, maybe he wanted Molly Qerim to get extra money, but again, it's not his money. It's not his budget.
By the afternoon, Stephen A. Smith flipped the entire script. On his Sirius XM show, the polite corporate act vanished, and the real tension finally peeked through. This time, there was no teleprompter smile, no legal-approved tone. He sounded irritated, almost defensive, like a man cornered by his own words. When a caller pushed him for answers, he snapped, "The details are none of y'all's business." Then quickly added, "It's not as if I know all the details." Wait, what?
Report said she turned down the contract, which means that she had probably seen all that she wanted to see at the, at that network. Mind you, she has been with ESPN for 20 years. 20 years. If you do anything, or if you work for any company for 20 years, maybe after some time, maybe you'll get tired. Maybe you want to do something else. I don't know how much money Molly made. I'm sure she made very good money working on TV and working at that network.
Suddenly, the loudest voice in sports had nothing to say? The guy who can rant for 20 minutes about a missed free throw suddenly lost his gift of gab. That's when everyone realized something wasn't adding up. His whole vibe screamed damage control, half defiance, half desperation. Viewers heard the shift immediately. The confidence was gone, replaced with nervous stammers and half-truths. The man who always had inside info suddenly wanted privacy. Fans weren't buying it.
It's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her. But in the end, rather, she made a decision to walk away from the show effective immediately. As you see from her Instagram post, her Instagram story.
If Stephen was supposedly so close to Molly, why couldn't he say anything real about why she walked away? The questions started piling up fast. What was he hiding? What story was too messy, too dangerous, or too embarrassing to say out loud? And why did he sound like someone protecting more than just a coworker? Within 24 hours of his teary, "We'll miss her," Stephen switched gears to preach about leverage and knowing your place at ESPN. That's not heartbreak talk. That's warning talk. It felt like the company line and his ego had tangled together like a busted mic cord, sparking with every word he tried to cover up. And right on cue, chaos got company.
This is a thankless job being a moderator. I know a lot of people who've sat in that same position on different shows, that show, and this, trust me, is a thankless position. It's hard to see somebody raise their hand and keep it up high for this long. I'm actually thoroughly surprised that Molly Qerim made it this long in that position.
Former NFL player and ex-ESPN insider Marcellus Wiley dove straight into the storm. And he didn't just throw gas on the fire, he built a bonfire, pulled up a lawn chair, and started roasting marshmallows. On his Hydration Situation podcast, Wiley dropped bombshell after bombshell, claiming this wasn't just about a contract gone bad, it was something way deeper.
But then you turn on First Take today, and Stephen A. Smith is opening it up, and he's bidding farewell to Molly, and it's clear that she's done for good. Like, this is it for her. I think it just speaks to the idea that whatever happened was not amicable, and that they are not parting on seemingly very pleasant terms at this moment.
Yeah, I think that was clear to me too.
According to Wiley, the truth behind Molly's exit had nothing to do with creative differences. It was personal. He said her relationship with Stephen A. Smith wasn't nearly as solid as ESPN made it look. Molly wanted one of two things, Wiley explained. Either a real raise or the chance to host her own show. But ESPN, always ready to protect the budget, refused both offers without hesitation.
And I'm gonna miss her. It's just that simple. But we all make decisions that we deem to be in our best interest for whatever reason. And that story is for her to tell. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No. Because again, that's her story to tell. But I do think it's important that I started off the show by just...
Then came the line that shook the internet. When he doesn't sign off on you, you don't get what you want. Boom! Wiley just said out loud what everyone else whispered behind the scenes. That one sentence hit like a thunderclap across social media, because once those words are spoken, you can't take them back. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about a woman leaving her job, it was about power. It was about who calls the shots at ESPN and who gets left behind holding the ladder.
It's like Stephen A put on his apology voice, whenever he gets into a scandal that he has to monologue an apology for. That was the same type of voice he was using at the top of today's show.
By now, the ugly contract details had started leaking out, and they painted a brutal picture. After nearly a decade keeping First Take from going off the rails, Molly Qerim was told she could stay at ESPN, but only if she stepped down as host. Can you imagine? That's like being told you can still come to the party, but you're not allowed inside the house.
Because we talked about the whole Molly Qerim situation in the morning. We're thinking, okay, it's going to play out, and there's going to be a grand farewell, celebration show, goodbye. And she just Dear John'd him. She said, out. I was like, wow. So obviously, this is pretty obvious. At least from Molly's point of view, I don't think it was the most amicable split.
ESPN's president of content, Burke Magnus, confirmed the bombshell himself. Molly was out, period. The network was already preparing to hold auditions for her replacement within 30 to 45 days. Just like that, the woman who kept calm through on-air shouting matches that made Real Housewives look peaceful was shown the door with corporate politeness and a smile that said, "We'll be in touch."
So let me start the speculation. When I heard that it was immediate, I was like, oh, she must already have a job lined up.
Mm-hmm.
And the job that she has lined up must be some sort of competitor to ESPN. And so that made me, is she going to Fox Sports?
Fans couldn't believe it. 10 years of loyalty, a decade of early mornings, unpredictable egos, and top-tier ratings. And it all ended with a cold, quiet goodbye. No celebration, no proper send-off, just a thanks for your service and a quick game of musical chairs. ESPN's message couldn't have been clearer: you're replaceable. It was business over bond, image over loyalty. The decision felt like something out of a corporate handbook, cold, calculated, and emotionless. They promised new opportunities, but everyone knew what that really meant: a graceful demotion dressed up as a fresh start. Even as the rumors exploded across social media, Molly Qerim stayed calm, or at least she tried to. Her Instagram farewell was picture perfect, polished like glass. Every single word chosen with care. She filled it with gratitude, lifelong friendships, unforgettable memories, and the chance to be part of something truly special. Not once did she mention the chaos swirling outside her comment section. No shade, no drama, just silence that screamed louder than any statement could. But behind the scenes, ESPN was already in panic mode. While fans were still processing her exit, executives were quietly setting up auditions, trying to fill her chair before it even cooled down. The same network that loves to preach family values moved like a company trying to clean up a PR spill before the morning headlines hit. Burke Magnus, ESPN's president of content, eventually stepped forward with the most corporate statement possible, admitting they knew Molly was leaving, but were surprised by the timing. Surprised? Please, this is the same network that hands out 9-figure deals to its loudest talkers and then treats the moderators, the ones who actually keep those egos in check, like they're playing musical chairs. If anyone at ESPN was heartbroken after Molly Qerim's sudden exit, they sure didn't show it. The very next morning, First Take rolled on like nothing happened. No tribute, no highlight reel, not even a single tear from her former co-hosts. Just a smooth transition to the next debate topic, like she'd never existed at all. Cold, right? Within hours, the network kicked off those infamous 30 to 45 days of tryouts, treating the search for her replacement like they were swapping out a light bulb instead of saying goodbye to the woman who built the show's rhythm for years. Behind the scenes, insiders started whispering that Stephen A. Smith was furious, not because he missed Molly, but because her exit cracked the mirror he'd been polishing for a decade. It exposed just how fragile his influence really was. Molly's departure didn't just leave a gap in the show, it threw a spotlight on the behind-the-scenes power games Stephen had mastered for years. Suddenly, the image of the unshakable face of ESPN looked a little shaky. But the headline that truly refused to die was still that Instagram post. Fans kept replaying it, analyzing every sentence like it was a secret code. There was warmth for her fans, gratitude for the company, even nods to her lifelong friendships. But one name was wiped out completely: Stephen A. Smith. Gone. Erased as if he'd never been part of her story. No inside joke, no friendly shout out, not even a polite mention. That kind of omission doesn't go unnoticed in the entertainment world. It screams drama. And the fact that Stephen has stayed tight-lipped about it all only made people talk louder. So what really went down between Molly Qerim and Stephen A. Smith? Why is he so determined to keep the truth buried even as the whispers get louder every week? We can't pretend this is just about Molly Qerim because the pattern is way too familiar. Her sudden, picture-perfect goodbye wasn't some isolated drama. It's practically ESPN tradition at this point. The network has turned classy exits for powerful women into an art form. The evidence is right there in plain sight. One by one, accomplished women have walked out of ESPN's doors, smiling for the cameras while carrying a silent suitcase full of what-ifs. Remember Jamila Hill? She turned SportsCenter into must-watch television, bold, opinionated, unapologetic. But after clashing with management over what she was allowed to say, she got pushed out with the usual polite statement about moving on to new opportunities. Sound familiar? And before Molly, there was Cari Champion, the woman who built chemistry on First Take, long before anyone thought the show could survive its egos. She held her ground against the biggest personalities in sports, only to be quietly replaced and eventually pushed out in 2020. Her exit came wrapped in that same corporate language. Grateful for the journey, ready for a new chapter. You know, the PR equivalent of a goodbye card signed under pressure. If history has taught us anything, it's that ESPN's playbook runs like an algorithm. 10 years of loyalty, one clean break, and a parade of tryouts to make it look like a fresh start. Different faces, same story. It's almost eerie how predictable it's become. Like the network's HR department keeps a folder of old farewell press releases and just swaps in a new name every few years. Here's what makes Molly Qerim's exit sting so much deeper than just another TV breakup. It's proof that the so-called ESPN family acts a lot more like a stepmother than a fairy godmother when it comes to the women who keep their empire running. ESPN's president of content, Burke Magnus, tried to sound diplomatic in his interview with The Athletic, saying, "We tried to have her do other things and to redo that agreement. It honestly became less about that and more about her wanting to explore other things." Sounds gentle, right? But when you read between the lines, it's pure corporate translation for "we pushed her out but made it sound like her idea." Because let's be real, every time a top female host gets sidelined, the company sings the same tired song. Expanded roles, versatility, other opportunities. But what do those other things actually mean? Smaller segments, fewer appearances, less visibility. Basically, the quiet fade out before the credits roll. No one gets offered less airtime, less money, and less control as a reward for being one of the most important faces on the network. That's not an opportunity. It's a downgrade dressed up as growth. And when women like Jamila Hill, Cari Champion, and now Molly Qerim refuse to smile through that fade, they get labeled difficult or ready for change. The truth? They're just done being sidelined while others reap the rewards of their work. Molly's decision to walk away, especially after reportedly being offered a renewal that stripped her of the very show she built, wasn't rebellion. Molly Qerim's exit wasn't resignation, it was rebellion. She didn't wait around to be transitioned to some background role or buried in a side project no one would watch. She cut the cord herself, clean, fast, and with precision. No final hugs on the studio floor, no fake smiles for the cameras, no pre-approved farewell montage. Just one sharp move that left ESPN speechless. In doing so, she sent a message that echoed far beyond Bristol headquarters. Sometimes, the only way to get respect in sports media is to stop asking for it. Her departure hit ESPN like a sucker punch. They were left scrambling for a replacement, completely flat-footed, while social media lit up with questions about their long history of pushing out their top women. Suddenly, ESPN wasn't just trending, it was being interrogated. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Molly's walkout wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. People close to the situation say it was a calculated move, designed to flip the script on the very company that tried to control hers. For years, Molly had been the perfect moderator, the peacemaker, the steady hand that kept First Take from collapsing under its own chaos. She made volatile egos look polished, turning fiery debates into must-see television. So when ESPN slid that so-called new offer across the table, stripping her of hosting duties while promising vague other opportunities, she didn't flinch. She didn't sign. She didn't play along. Instead, she detonated their entire PR plan. By quitting before they could rewrite the story, Molly stole the narrative right out from under their noses. She left them holding a draft press release that suddenly had no ending, no spin, no mutual agreement, no creative differences to hide behind. In one bold move, she turned her exit into a power play. There was real strategy in how Molly Qerim made her move. By walking out right after her demotion became official, instead of waiting for the slow fade out every insider saw coming, she flipped the spotlight completely. Suddenly, the story wasn't about her leaving, it was about why she left and what ESPN had done to push her there. She didn't give the network time to stage their usual send-off. The highlight reels, the fake testimonials, the polished goodbye speeches that make every exit look mutual. Nope. She pulled the plug instantly, leaving executives scrambling to find a replacement and fumbling through PR statements that sounded more like damage control than celebration. It forced ESPN to reveal its true hand in real time, peeling away that glossy image of opportunity and growth they hide behind when their top talent walks. That awkward 30 to 45-day audition window became a symbol of their unpreparedness. It wasn't a scheduling issue, it was proof they never expected Molly to call their bluff. She didn't walk quietly, she walked powerfully, making her exit feel like a chess move instead of a meltdown. In one move, she put ESPN in check, daring them to explain why a decade-long anchor would rather quit than accept a so-called promotion that looked more like professional exile. Fans saw it. Insiders whispered it. Even rival networks were impressed by how calculated her timing was. Her bold decision didn't just protect her reputation, it amplified it. It painted her as the host who refused to play background for anyone. But more than that, it cracked open ESPN's double standards for everyone to see. It made people ask the hard questions. Why do women at this network always seem to move on to other things? Why are their careers always wrapped up in neat little press statements instead of truth? Molly's abrupt departure wasn't a retreat, it was a public challenge. A statement that dared the entire industry to answer one explosive question: who really gets to write the endings for women in sports media? And what happens when one of them refuses to follow the script? As for Stephen A. Smith, Molly Qerim's exit hit him way harder than he wanted anyone to see. This is a man who built his entire empire on control, on being loud, confident, and always having the last word. But when Molly's chair sat empty that next morning, something looked off. The king of ESPN suddenly looked like a guest on his own show. Sure, his tribute on air sounded respectful enough, but just hours later on his Sirius XM show, the mask slipped. When callers pressed him about what really happened, he snapped, "The details are none of y'all's business," and then fumbled with, "It's not as if I know all the details." Really? Stephen A. Smith, the man who claims to know everything from NBA locker room politics to White House gossip, suddenly doesn't know? Fans weren't buying it. The shift was obvious. He wasn't calm, he was cornered. For a man who thrives on dominance, Molly's exit exposed something rare: vulnerability. Insiders said it wasn't just about losing a co-host. It was about losing control. She didn't let him steer the narrative or spin her exit. She didn't give him a script to read, a moment to grandstand, or a final debate to win. Molly bypassed everyone: the producers, the PR team, and most importantly, him. No pre-taped farewell, no montage of happy memories, no soft goodbye, just silence, an empty seat, and an Instagram story that spoke louder than any speech he could have given. For once, Stephen A. wasn't leading the conversation, he was chasing it. And that's a role he's never played well. Fans could smell the unease through the screen. The man who always had the answers suddenly had none, left sitting under bright studio lights trying to explain a story that everyone else already knew didn't end on his terms. Behind the scenes, things were far messier than the polished smiles on camera suggested. Sources inside ESPN say Stephen A. Smith was absolutely furious and completely blindsided. It wasn't just Molly Qerim's sudden exit that shook him, it was how she did it. Her move hit right at the heart of his influence, and everyone in the building knew it. For nearly a decade, Stephen had been the gravitational center of First Take, the loudest voice, the face of the brand, the man who called the shots without ever saying so outright. But Molly's exit shattered that illusion. It proved something few dared to say aloud. Stephen's power might be massive, but it isn't untouchable. So when he went on air and started preaching about humility and knowing your place, fans caught the subtext instantly. Was he talking about Molly? Or was that a warning shot to the rest of ESPN, telling everyone to remember who runs the show? Because that kind of sermon doesn't sound like closure. It sounds like control. It's the type of speech that says, don't get any ideas, without having to say it outright. Meanwhile, word started spreading fast about what Molly was planning next, and it made ESPN look even worse. Early reports suggested she was heading to NBC Sports for a position that wasn't just another hosting gig. She'd reportedly be taking on an executive role, complete with producer credits, cross-platform authority, and creative control over how stories get told. After years stuck under a glass ceiling disguised as a debate table, she was finally building her own floor plan. That's not just a promotion, it's a power play. And it left ESPN red-faced. The message to every ambitious woman still inside the building was loud and clear. Waiting your turn might just mean waiting for a demotion. And for Stephen A., the message was even colder. His dominance, his brand, his empire, it all depends on the people who choose to stand beside him. The fallout from First Take is still unraveling, and it's getting uglier by the week. ESPN's so-called 30 to 45-day trial period to audition new hosts says it all. They never saw this coming. It's like they got hit with a hurricane and are now trying to rebuild the studio in real time. Meanwhile, Stephen A. Smith is busier than ever. Between his expanded NFL and NBA coverage, fueled by that jaw-dropping $100 million contract, it's clear where ESPN's money and focus are going. But here's the million-dollar question. Can First Take even survive as the Stephen A. show without the one person who could keep him balanced? Molly Qerim wasn't just a moderator. She was the anchor in the chaos, the voice of reason when egos clashed, the calm in the storm. Without her, it's just a shouting match with no rhythm. And fans are starting to feel it. Will the audience stick around for a revolving door of fill-in hosts? Or is this the beginning of a long, slow ratings slide for ESPN's crown jewel? Insiders at rival networks are already whispering that First Take's grip on the morning sports debate throne might not be as secure as everyone thought. Because when you start losing the people who made your show watchable, the entire formula starts to crack. ESPN's reputation was built on chemistry, and now that chemistry's gone. But the real twist: Molly's next chapter looks like a masterclass in leveling up. Rumors say her new deal with NBC Sports includes full creative control and a major salary leap. In other words, she didn't just leave, she traded up. And ESPN knew it. Within hours of her exit hitting the headlines, the network rushed to announce shiny new multi-year contracts for other rising stars like Malika Andrews. Clearly an attempt to patch the PR hole before it got bigger. So what was that? A morale boost or a quiet confession that some voices can be replaced and others simply can't? Because no matter how ESPN spins it, the optics are brutal. When your most recognizable female host walks away from your biggest show and lands an even bigger gig across town, it makes everyone in the building and watching at home ask one hard question. What's the ESPN badge really worth these days? So here we are, staring at the question no one inside ESPN dares to answer. If Stephen A. Smith really valued Molly Qerim the way he claimed, why didn't he fight for her? Why didn't the loudest voice in sports speak up when it actually mattered? Was he protecting his empire? Or did Molly's exit quietly expose the limits of his power? Fans can feel it, the tension, the silence, the unfinished business. Behind that bright studio desk, something bigger is brewing. Was this just another corporate shuffle? Or a power struggle that got way too personal? The rumors won't stop, and honestly, neither will the questions. So tell us what you think. Who was really pulling the strings here? Was Stephen A. covering for the network or for himself? And what other secrets are still being buried behind ESPN's spotless image? Drop your theories in the comments, hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe, share, and stay locked in. Because in the world of sports media, loyalty is just a handshake. Until the cameras stop rolling. Catch you on the next one, where the truth is always messier than the highlight reel.